A lonely, hunched-over figure in a Santa Claus costume wandered slowly down the street. On Christmas Eve, no one cared at all about another jerk in a red coat and a pasted-on beard. The stranger, if he had taken the initiative, could have made good money at corporate parties or children's matinees. His tall stature and sloping broad shoulders, hard, prickly gaze, and massive brow arches pointed to incredible fortitude. His long, weary arms were wrapped in muscle. Stepping toward his intended goal, he knew that today he would accomplish it. Santa's huge sack was stuffed to the brim with presents, which meant that everyone to whom they were intended would be happy. After checking the list, he ticked off those who had already received what they deserved.
"Have you been naughty or nice this year?"
the stranger said in a husky voice, chuckling softly. He liked the phrase so much that he muttered it to himself for a long time. His heavy boots stomped on the snowy sidewalk. Just a little longer, and he could breathe easy, for this would be the last address on his list.
"Okay, Coastal Road 48. It must be here,"
Santa whispered, wiping the drops of sweat from his forehead. At last, the address he was looking for was found. It was a huge two-story mansion with columns and red tiles. The gate was open. The stranger smirked at the utter carelessness of its occupants, but then he saw something which made him take it back. Two huge dogs were approaching from either side of him. Their powerful, tense bodies were ready to lunge at a moment's notice. They ran up to the man dressed as Santa Claus, stopped, and at arm's length, carefully sniffed first him and then the bag. The stranger didn't move, staring into their angry eyes. Suddenly, one of the dogs whimpered and ran away toward the house. The other didn't hesitate long to follow suit.
"Hey, where are you going?"
He heard a shout behind. When he turned around, he saw a watchman, or caretaker.
"I'm on a call, actually. I am a surveillman. The boss said I should greet someone, so I do it,"
replied the strange visitor. Somehow the watchman realized, through a sixth sense, that the dressed-up Santa was lying.
"What are you carrying in the bag? It must be heavy,"
inquired the guard, fighting the urge to look inside.
"Only the presents. You may look, if you wish,"
replied the stranger, and tensed up a little. The gatekeeper felt a noticeably icy grave chill coming from his guest's words, and his imagination quickly drew a picture of a mound with a tombstone set on it. The date of death was today. Maybe I should forget that jerk in the costume. Let him go wherever he wants, and I'll go farther away, thought the watchman. The guy was no more than 30. He wanted to live more than anything, and this sullen sociopath in the guise of Santa could shorten that life in the blink of an eye.
"All right, come on in. There's the door and a bell. Well, you'll figure it out,"
the guard replied, feeling his back sweating from talking to a stranger.
"Yeah, sure. I'll figure it out,"
the visitor replied, and headed off in the direction indicated.
"Hey, wait a minute. Can I ask you a question?"
The guard who caught up with him, almost at the door, asked. A snide curiosity lingered on his face.
"Well, ask away,"
replied the man dressed as Santa in a tired voice. He had had enough of this conversation, and he felt an angry spark building up in his soul that could burst forth like gunpowder at any second.
"What was that trick you did with the dogs? They ran away from you like hell. You got something stashed in the sack, didn't you?"
the watchman asked cheerfully.
"Yes, I did. Want to see for yourself or what?"
replied the man, and smirked, baring white, strong teeth. The watchman bent down and took hold of the sack.
"You'd better not. There may be fragile things. Who will pay if the owners complain later?"
said the stranger reasonably. The guard sensed an icy tone in his voice, so he didn't tempt fate any further and retired to the gatehouse. There he hung his uniform on the nail. and went home in plain clothes. At that time, he didn't know that he was born with a lucky star, and his curiosity could have cost him a life. Santa stopped at the door and pressed a button. At that moment, something appeared beside him. The stranger had seen it in his dreams 1,000 times before, but never before had it looked so real. His terrible wounds had festered, robbing him of any hope of healing. The dead man tried to say something, twitching his broken neck, but all he came out with was a hoarse croak.
"I do understand,"
replied the fake Santa Claus. The zombie gathered the rest of his strength into a fist and nodded, but only with the help of both hands. Otherwise, his head would have fallen off with a sharply shattered piece of spine sticking out of his neck.
"It's time,"
said the Santa Claus, and stepped toward the door. The nightmare creature had gone as quickly as it had appeared. The insistent trill of the bell cut through the cozy atmosphere. It was Christmas Eve, and a group of youngsters was getting ready to celebrate it. The music was booming, trying to blow out the window frames with its bass. The neighbors didn't mind, because the troublemakers weren't ordinary teens. Their dads made huge sums of money, and could easily compete with Forbes magazine nominees. The guys bought some champagne, 10 bottles of cognac, and loads of draft beer. The girls chopped salads and generally showed their culinary skills in full glory.
"Who the hell is that?"
irritably replied Mark, the owner of a luxurious country mansion with a swimming pool, a tennis court, and a helipad. He rocked to the rhythm of the music and opened the door by turning the lock. He opened his mouth in surprise and stared at the visitor in a daze. There was the real Santa Claus in a red overcoat, with a false beard and a pointed hat. Surprisingly, he didn't smell of booze, but his eyes glittered frantically as if he had taken a couple of shots before he came. The Christmas symbol grunted and dropped a huge sack on the floor.
"I'm making a list, checking it twice. Gonna find out who's naughty or nice,"
said the Santa Claus in a muffled bass voice.
"Who's that freak? Where did he come from? And who sent him to me?"
agonized Mark.
"Maybe the cops sent him. If so, I'm screwed. There's so much forbidden stuff in the house that there's enough for everyone for life,"
he thought feverishly, but then he pulled himself together and chuckled merrily.
"Santa has already come. It's time for me to have some fun. I have a gift, or maybe none. You have to check the bag for one,"
the bearded, festive old man murmured in rhyme.
"Wow, there really are presents in here,"
said the youngster, intrigued, suspecting that this was the surprise of his diplomat father. He and his wife were celebrating in Paris, drunk on cognac and wine, so they decided to surprise their son by sending a fancy dude. Mark leaned over the bag and unraveled it, tightly tied with a string.
"You are overacting, Grandpa. The knot's tightened too much,"
thought the boy, tearing off his fingernails as he tried to open the sack. At last, the knot began to move, and the master of the house opened it with a sharp movement. Mark had never been a man of weak nerves. He'd been a fan of horror movies with Freddy Krueger and the Living Dead since he was a kid. But here, he just fell into an abyss of terror. His mouth opened in a mute scream as he felt fear sliding like an icy sword through his insides. His bladder, unable to withstand the strain, emptied its contents onto the expensive Spanish parquet. His heart stiffened in a painful spasm, testing its walls for strength as if it were about to burst in a cascade of horrific torment. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a huge red pool of what looked like blood spreading out under the bag. Inside the sack were severed human heads, laid out by someone's caring hand. There were so many that you could have bowled with them without fear of the consequences. The hair on the human skulls was slick with blood, and some had a horrible post-mortem mask on their faces. A horrible stench emanated from the contents of the sack, as if it were a slaughterhouse on a July day. Mark, still shaking with his whole body, staggered back into the house. His movements reminded of a perverse imitation of Jackson's moonwalk, but Bloody Santa prevented him from his maneuver by drawing a huge mace with a ball-shaped tip cast of lead. He swung it straight into the guy's forehead, The skull flew off like a roof in a hurricane, showering the entire hallway with a billion splashes of blood. His eyes fell out of their orbits and dangled on thin nerve endings, dangling like toys on a Christmas tree. He pushed Mark's body aside and struck him twice more in the head, turning it into a bloody mess. Then he stepped over the body of the defeated victim and headed into the hall, where the party was already in full swing. The drunken screams sounded like a cacophony in hell in the silence of Christmas Eve. The first murder of his life, shortly before that, untied the bloody butcher's hands. It was so easy that at first he didn't even realize how it had happened. Playing out the scenario 1,000 times in his head, the killer no longer imagined that it would be otherwise. He had been preparing for a long time and finally had the chance to prove that he was a worthy man for the world. The heads in the sack gave him a pleasant heaviness. His heart felt noticeably better, and in general, he had long ago realized that justice should be with Fist, though not corrupt like the first number on the list of those he intended to visit. The maniac smiled sweetly, and for a moment sank into his memories. The bastard's house was no less than that of the oligarch's son, apparently juggling with the law as he pleased. The Minister of Justice managed to make a lot of money. The bodyguard was quickly eliminated. One blow with his truncheon was enough to send him to eternal knockout. When he burst into the house, he found the owner asleep, surrounded by bottles of cognac, cigars, and naked girls. Santa Claus roared,
"Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year!"
and signaled the prostitutes to leave, as he didn't need any extra victims. The fat man looked up and stared at the dressed-up Santa.
"Who are you? I didn't call you. I don't believe in Santa Claus. Ever since I was a kid."
The man muttered. There was still a heavy dose of alcohol in his blood, so he didn't fully understand the seriousness of the situation.
"Nobody calls me. I come in by myself when it's time, and you'll believe the fairy tale soon."
The big guy in the Santa Claus costume growled. He probably would have taken the top prize in the contest for the title of the best Santa, because his gifts were the most original ever presented.
"Have you come to rob me?"
The judge asked with a fidgety glance at the maniac's face, well aware of how deluded he was in his own judgment.
"I don't care about your papers. I want you to understand why you must die. You're a bloodsucker, a vile mite who would sell his conscience for money,"
replied Santa, drilling the victim with his distinctive stare. Of course, the judge didn't expect him to break into the house to take his head off, but apparently, everything happens for the first time in this life. The fat man got on his knees and begged for life, but he didn't know that Bloody Santa hadn't come to bargain. He didn't want money or power. He just made a verdict and had to put it into action. The judge's head was the first one in the sack, bobbing proudly alone. Then there was the dishonest morgue worker. For a few bucks, he could scam up any fake paperwork or certificate. He himself suffered from alcoholism and consumed alcohol in unthinkable quantities. He wasn't surprised to see the killer, thinking that he was once again suffering from delirium.
"Get ready to go to hell,"
growled the fake Santa Claus. Surprisingly, the expert took the news with his usual indifference. "Why should I be afraid? I'm already in hell. Look, I'm in this realm of the dead most of the time, surrounded by corpses," the medic said. The maniac didn't take his head. Instead, he threw the pathologist's head back, poured in as much alcohol as he could fit, then took out a match, lit it, and put it into the mouth. The doctor literally detonated from the overflowing alcoholic fumes. Like a flaming torch, he scurried around the morgue, illuminating the deceased with a bizarrely bright light. Bloody Santa stood staring at the burning building of the medical examiner's office. The fire conjured up pleasant associations of his soul, alluding to cleansing through pain. He was awakened from his pleasant contemplation by the noise of the youngsters. They hadn't even noticed the absence of the master of the house. And of course, they didn't know that his head was already resting in the sack. The toast of Merry Christmas came one after another. The maniac smiled and entered the hall. At first, no one paid any attention to the visitor, intending to celebrate to the limits. but the girlfriend of one of the guys shrieked at the sight of Santa Claus with the beard, which seemed to have been dipped into a jar of raspberry jam 5 minutes ago. Her scream stabbed nastily at the ears and made the bloody butcher grimace. He didn't beat around the bush. He grabbed the lying girl by the hair and tossed her out the window. A body in stiletto heels and a miniskirt flew like a torpedo onto the road. Such a throw would have been the envy of Jordan himself. Alex stood closest to the killer. He had loved playing hero since childhood and decided he could do it today. As you might expect, the trick didn't work. Alexander tried to hit the bloodthirsty assassin, but he grabbed the arm and took it in a twist. The joint tracheously crunched, and a bone was revealed. Alex howled in pain and lost consciousness from the painful shock. Santa Claus rushed into the crowd of young people, waving his mace and sowing death right and left. He wielded this weapon very skillfully, inflicting irreparable damage on his adversaries. He shattered Ned's kneecaps and squeezed out his eyes with fingers, growling furiously. The bearded Santa knew only one thing: he wouldn't leave here with their lives. The girls, shrieking, rushed through the broken window into the street. The maniac, as if acting according to some plan, chose Elliot as his victim. He almost managed to slip away from the carnage, but the killer's clinging paws caught him near the door, pulling him so that the boy flew out of his shoes. He struck the boy right into the face, destroying any hope of a Hollywood smile. "Why?" moaned Ned, wriggling on the floor. In the meantime, the maniac had locked all the doors and dragged a bag of severed heads into the hall. At last, he could go about his favorite business, collecting trophies. He arranged them on the table in the form of a pyramid and admired the resulting gruesome picture. Then, something in the nightmarish composition made him feel dissatisfied. He took one of the heads by the ear, turned it in his hands, and hung it on the Christmas tree. So he decorated the symbol of the holiday with human heads from top to bottom. Then he took a bunch of tinsel from the wall and threw it on the Christmas tree. Reveling in his power, he felt his superiority over his captives. His head no longer ached. It was as if a microbomb had exploded in it. And now he would slay his enemies until his arm tired. He had been waiting for this day for a long time, and he had thought it through in great detail.
"All that's missing for a complete collection is your stupid heads,"
he said, addressing everyone present.
"But I won't kill you if you answer one question. What did you do a year ago in December?"
The answer was silence, and Ned's muffled groans. The maniac knew why he was here, but he wanted the party members to realize it as well, since what had happened was entirely their fault. Everyone who had anything to do with this case was already dead. Bloody Santa's thoughts ran backward, rewinding the timeline to a year ago. Subscribe so that you don't miss the second part of Bloody Santa's story.